Welcome everybody to another Between Two Bookshelves. My name is Attilio and this is Ashley.
Hey guys.
And today we are going to be going over The Like Switch.
Yes.
Written by an ex-FBI agent.
Yes, from the BAU, Dr. Jack Schaefer, and it was also written by, I have it written on the board, Dr. Marvin Carlins. And so they wrote it together, but I believe they're both ex-BAU, Behavioral Analysis Unit, FBI agents. So very strong backgrounds, impressive backgrounds, but it leaked over into the book quite a bit, and it was an interesting book.
I agree. And I guess before we get into it, did you want to let everybody know kind of what we're doing for where they can get the books and everything?
For sure. So in all of the descriptions of our videos, you can find links to the books that we're currently reviewing and the next book that we're going to be reviewing. We review 2 books a month, and all the proceeds from the books that you purchase go to a nonprofit called Room to Read. And they help underprivileged children around the world get access to books and education.
Yep.
So, want to do a sweet little synopsis of the book real quick?
Yeah, so basically this book, this guy kind of tells it in several stories and some examples, but he kind of talks about basically what he calls like the friendship framework. Is maybe how I kind of like center this book around, is like this friendship framework. And basically it's how to get people to like you even if they like would hate you or would be like an enemy of the state even at first, and then how he like turns those people into people that he can have conversations with and
allies.
And allies, really.
Yeah.
So this is like the most extreme, like usually if you're like in the context of maybe like a classroom, people don't come into it like hating someone right away usually. Usually it's like neutral feelings at first, or even if you're using this for like marketing or something, people maybe just don't know you at first and maybe they don't hate you or resent you, but these people like straight up are turning enemies of the state into allies. So this is probably
crazy. There's some very interesting stories in there.
Oh yeah, and so basically the whole book's about this like friendship framework, what kind of techniques and tactics and what kind of like nonverbal cues and stuff that you can use to start developing trust and build relationships with people.
Yeah. So I guess let's go ahead and jump right into it. Our first score is going to be readability. How easy was it for you to read?
Yep. And so all of these are getting scored out of 2 points, so we're gonna have a maximum of 10. So for those of you who are new, welcome. And so readability-wise, I thought it was pretty simple. This one I audiobooked, and I was on 2 times speed the whole time. And so I just kind of like burned through it, which was nice. It was about an 8-hour or 4-hour on 2x speed. Listen, it was pretty straightforward. It was just a bunch of stories, really quick and easy, like little points. I didn't think it was too crazy. I didn't think it was like super good or super bad, so I'm gonna give it like a 1.5.
Yeah, for me on readability, it was super easy to read. And like our last book, Checklist Manifesto, it was built upon stories and kind of examples of techniques, I guess. They're not really like points, more just like techniques and what you use in order to complete this friendship framework. We're all built upon stories and how they worked for him, how they worked for his students or people that he's known. And so for me, it was really easy to read. And so I'm going to rate it a 1.5 out of 2.
And I guess our next score, we'll just jump in.
Yeah, relevancy score. So how relevant is it to the topic that they claim to have written about?
Super relevant.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I mean, this book, and I mean, it extends a little bit more than just, even just that topic. Like, I feel like if someone likes you, or if you can get people to like you, you can make a movement around yourself, right? So, like, having people like you is important, and I think that that's really, like, solidified in this. There's examples in the book where he's just like, yeah, I was just, like, nice to a customer service person, and they, like, made me a deal. And like that they wouldn't have given to someone else. And so that right there is just like, listen, anybody, like you could be at the food store and like be nice to somebody, they would like you, maybe you go back a couple times, maybe all of a sudden you find yourself coming home with like some free stuff or something, who knows. So I think it's hyper relevant. I think it's important for people to like you. Building rapport is like one of the highest pinnacle things. Every conversation you could leave an impact on someone, right? So I'm actually, I usually don't rank these before. You like to rank them before.
Yes.
But I think I'm actually going to give it a 2.
Oh, wow. Perfect score.
Yeah, perfect relevancy score.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For me, I think it was super relevant. First of all, the credentials of the author are probably as good as you can get. Kind of like what we were saying, the extreme of turning an enemy of the state into an ally is kind of the most crazy example of getting somebody to like you. Something that he said in the book was that, like, if you go, I think this is a paraphrase, if you go out looking for a friend for yourself, you won't find any, but if you go out looking to be a friend to somebody else, like, there's an enormous amount of people. So just like paying attention to people, listening to people, active listening to people, engaging, things like that. I think it was super relevant in that way. I think for me, my role in my day-to-day job is dealing with people, being kind of a customer service point of contact for people, making people happy and making them like me. And so I think that this was super helpful and relevant, at least for me. And so I'm going to give it a 1.75.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I think we're kind of ranking it pretty good so far. This book was a little bit different than what we've read in the past, where our other ones have been a lot more business and mindset oriented. And I don't even know what I would categorize this as.
I wonder if it's like kind of a mindset book.
Okay.
But like, I think this is why I gave it a 2, because it's like legit so relevant, because you could, like, if I wanted to put this in our marketing, we could,
Yeah.
like if we wanted to, like, all of our interactions, for even your role, for my role, like if I'm doing sales with someone, he does use some sales examples. I mean, and so it's just so wide ranging, and I feel like it's just really important. I don't know.
Yeah, it also talks about, there was right at the beginning of the book, examples of like, he had a student that was, I guess, kind of bragging about his ability to make women like him at a bar with his friends, and his friends didn't believe him, and so he showed him what he could do. This girl ended up asking for the guy's number or something like that, and so his 2 buddies showed up at the lecture the next day because of the author's lecture. Anyways, so it is applicable wherever, and that leads us into our next category of applicability. Where can you apply this? Is it easy to apply? What do you think?
Pretty easy to apply. I mean, he kind of broke it down. There are some caveats, I think, right? I think practice makes perfect, and even in the book, he was giving some examples of how he could have handled things better. So he gives some examples where it's like, oh yeah, we just set up this system where this spy engages with this person over a month and a half, and then eventually approaches them, and by that time they've been disarmed, and so it like feels like it's like methodical and scientific, but then even in certain parts of the book, he's like, yeah, I probably could have handled it better. I let my ego get in the way. I let like this, that, and the other happen. So, I think it's easy enough to apply, but that's not to say that these guys are both of these guys are doctors, right? These guys are PhDs in behavioral sciences. These guys worked in the FBI. These guys, some of these things I think come naturally to some people, where maybe they don't come naturally to everybody. You've seen those people that blow up at the customer service counter, or like off of a plane flight because they missed it or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And that's just not you. That's not like you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And so I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt, like maybe they're just having a bad day, or maybe something really, really happened, or they've had enough, they've seen it enough times. But so I don't know, maybe it is easy, maybe it isn't, and it's kind of hard to speak to that. I think for me it's easy enough because I feel like I'm already a kind of a nice person, and I try to be friends with everybody, and that's just kind of how I was raised. Like don't be the person who's the friend with everyone in school kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and I'm actually gonna give it maybe like I'm actually gonna give it like a 1.25.
That's my score.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna give it a 1.25. Because it's like scary, easy to apply, but also like kind of weirdly not.
Yeah, I can't remember. There was a name for it that it escapes me. Maybe I'll put it here when I remember. I don't know. But it was basically a theory or a fallacy that comes into play whenever you know these things and you're trying to implement them. And so in the book he talks about giving out signals, and so you end up sending a faux signal because you're doing things intentionally and it seems fake, or like, so you're not giving out the friend signal, and so people are noticing that you're doing things strangely, even though maybe you're trying to be more friendly or use these type of psychological things to engage with people, and it ends up coming off badly. And so I think for me, that's why I rated it a 1.25, because I definitely would be the one like thinking of like, okay, this is what the book said to do, or this is what, and then I'm like not even listening to the person because I'm just like thinking about that, or like, you know. And so I think for me, small things are easy to apply as far as like in my work life, just making sure that my clients and customers feel listened to and heard, and I'm giving them friend signals, things like that. But like in a social setting, I think I would totally butcher it. So 1.25 for me.
That's funny. You bring that up.
Yeah.
like in practice, it's like a totally different thing.
Yeah. But up next we have value versus expectation. Basically just, what did we expect from the book? Did we have high expectations, and did it deliver? For me, I didn't really know anything about the book. I know that when we first talked about it, or when we talked about it last week in our last video, we kind of were like, okay, is it going to be, without reading like the preface or anything, is it going to be about social stuff, or is it going to be about like getting more likes on your content? But it ended up being about people actually liking you, which I think is even more important. So everyone's laughing, sorry. But so yeah, I think for me, it definitely delivered on value versus expectation, because I didn't really have any expectations for it. Did it blow my mind as far as the value it gave? No. A lot of it is kind of natural, I think, and I think that's the power in it. But for me, I'm going to give it a 1.25 again, because it was good, but not amazing.
That's not bad. Yeah, I mean, it feels like all of this is like natural. Mm-hmm. Right, but I feel like he did such a good job at highlighting exactly what it is.
Like, what was it? Like the pursing of the lips, or biting your lip,
yeah,
or rolling.
Like, it's like explain different signals, right?
Yeah.
I think we've all seen like Sherlock Holmes and stuff like that, where he like can analyze someone really quick and tell you exactly what's going on. Like, oh yeah, this person, he was clearly like working in a chimney because the ash on his like brushed it. It feels like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Or it was like, you can just tell like exactly what's going on, and then just like come up with a good like empathetic way to. So kind of interesting. Sorry, getting back to value versus expectation. Didn't know too much about it. Mm-mm. Don't know who recommended this to us. Some books, like the next book that we're reading, I can distinctly remember who recommended it, but this one, I don't know where we got it from. Maybe it was just like an Amazon bestseller type thing.
I think so.
And so, value that it provided, I think it was just really good at highlighting exactly what needed to be done. So I'm going to give it... That's the thing with this score, though. I didn't expect too much, too. I'll give it a 1.5, actually.
Nice. Something before we move on to our next category is, I think that it's really hard whenever we're reading the book so quickly, back to back. I think if I could have spent more time on this book and maybe like digested it a little bit better, or spent the next 2 weeks instead of reading a new book trying to apply it without moving on with reading something new, but focusing on applying the knowledge I just learned, I think this book could be a lot more powerful. But the frequency of our books is really high, and so I think that this book actually does hold a lot of power. It's not one of my favorites that we've read so far, but that doesn't mean that it's not like potentially be life-changing for you, particularly if you're introverted or you're socially anxious and things like that. There's a lot of
say extroverts, because he does bring up like pros
Yeah.
and cons of both sides.
Yeah, for sure. For everyone, really. But if this is something that you have noticed or taken just like awareness to, this book is super, super helpful and powerful in that way. But I think for me, it would have been better, and maybe I still can, just like to take time and like work on applying it, or go back and highlight the things that I think would be easy for me to kind of work into my day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, our next score of the butterfly effect, which is, does it excite you? Does it make you like ready to make some moves, ready to make some changes in your life, give you butterflies in your stomach, hence the name? It didn't do that for me, like hardly at all. But I think more this is just knowledge based and like having this in your back pocket rather than like a call to action, like, okay, let's change your life, let's get you 1 million friends. Like it wasn't like that. It was more of like, this is really powerful knowledge to have in your back pocket. So for me, the butterfly effect was a 0.5. I don't think I've rated anything that low before, and I don't want that. That's not like a bad thing. It's just not that type of book.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. It didn't really have like a call to action. It wasn't like use this and get this.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, I mean, it was just kind of like information about, listen, man, this is one of the most important things ever.
It really
There
is.
you
There's
go.
a lot of weight on it, like getting people
Yeah.
to like you, and well, it's kind of overwhelming, like to know like how many like little micro
Yeah.
things go on between a person in just like a 2-minute conversation from people to people, and kind of like what we realize subconsciously. So it's crazy. Sorry, I interrupted. What was your score?
No. I mean, super important, but at the same time, like some people will even tell you that like, just don't care about what other people think. The right people will like you for who you are and what you do and stuff like. And so, you kind of hear two conflicting points, and I don't know. To me, it just kind of it wasn't that type of book really, but it did explain how to kind of get what you want from people, like after they like you.
Yeah.
Kinda.
And it wasn't in like a manipulative way even, but it was, I guess it was an FBI agent. But I took it more as a way to kind of stand out. Like particularly whenever he was talking about the customer service representatives, specifically in airline people, where there's people yell at them a lot, ruins their plans, and when you notice that they're frustrated or frazzled or like any of that stuff, they're more likely to like you and give you upgrades and things like that. And to me, that's like standing out, and that makes people like you. But I guess it could be seen as manipulative, especially if it's not if it's insincere.
Yeah.
So
I think my score, I think I might have to land with you. I think I might have to land with you on a 0.5.
yeah.
0.6.
Ooh. One up.
No, I'll go with like a 0.5 because it just, while it had everything it needed to have, it had the oomph, packed the punch, it got the stuff done. It just wasn't like it didn't have like that means to an end kind of feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll give it a 0.5.
If you're wanting like a book to inspire you, to get you off your ass, to make you make changes in your life, this is not that book. If you're already making moves in your life and you're ready to go to the next level, or you're just really wanting to expand upon your knowledge of human interaction, this book is great for that. So I think that's kind of the difference. The previous books that we've been reading have had a really strong call to action, or most of them at least, and this one is more knowledge based, and you kind of have to be at the point where you're wanting to do that to really get the most out of this book. So I think my overall score is a 6.05 out of 10. So definitely over the halfway mark. I think even though my score is on the lower side, I'll definitely be reading this book again in the future. I just think for our particular scoring categories, this book did not fit those shapes very well.
Yeah. So my score was 6.75, so a little bit higher. I think this might be the most
Difference.
different that we've been.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, still pretty close, but still within 1 point. But
Yeah.
it just, I mean, it was a good book. I think you need to come into it already motivated to maybe make a change, or consider that you could pick something up from the book.
Yeah.
I liked it actually overall.
What kind of person would you recommend it to?
I was saying this before filming, like someone who's a psychopath, who has no idea, like you don't know how to be empathetic, you know. So maybe that's the way to kind of take it, where it's like, how can you build more meaningful relationships?
As a psychopath.
As just like anybody really. Like if you feel like you could make more meaningful relationships, or maybe you're just like starved for attention and you just are really lonely or something, and you just need to know like how to make more friends, or like how to deepen or widen the pool of relationships that you have, I'd say this is probably a good book for you. If you, I mean, maybe you just want to get more confidence. Like honestly, this book can kind of inspire a little bit of confidence because you're following a little bit of a framework to be empathetic towards other people, which just kind of draws people to you.
For sure.
I mean, he talks about a bunch of like little things, some things that you've probably already heard, like the Benjamin Franklin effect, where if you ask someone to do a favor for you, they're more likely to like you. And so it's like little things that you've probably already heard. If you're really like, if you've lived your life under a rock, maybe this is like the perfect revelation book for you. But I think it's sort of
I've
just
watched a lot of Criminal Minds, so I'm kind of an expert in the behavioral analysis stuff. No, but this book had a lot of value, I think, but was not as exciting maybe as some of our other books that we've read.
Yeah.
We do have an interesting book coming up this next book review. I'll let you kind of take the reins on that. You were the inspiration behind adding this to our reading list.
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. This book is heavily based on copywriting. And so if you are in sales, if you are in a creative field, if you are
business.
Business. I mean,
Business.
copywriting can be one of the things that is just absolutely, it just separates you from the pack. And if you really know how to write and tell a story, if you really know how to engage people, I mean, people are gonna like you, you know, like, so this book is screenwriting for Hollywood. And this is by Mike Hague. So this is one of many books that he's written. Mike Hague is a pretty big like screenplayer, Hollywood guy, like, he writes stories, right? I just looked up a quick little bit, like, how do you say his name just to make sure we weren't going to botch it. And one of the first things that popped up was Mike Hague on an interview with Will Smith talking about how they worked on I Am Legend together. And so, like, these are high caliber people who are writing stories for the masses that consistently make hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars inside of this Hollywood machine.
Based on the copywriting.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this is based on copywriting. Mm-hmm. And just having that story that can be told, yes, through actors, but it's the story, right, that people love and hang on to and creates all those tropes, like Star Wars, right? Yeah. Everyone knows the story of Star Wars. And yes, we fell in love with the actors who played in Star Wars, but it was a story that people like.
So there's a lot of expectation.
Yeah, so
here,
I'm coming into this with some expectation here. This is Hollywood here. Hollywood.
Cool. So be expecting that. You can grab that book from Amazon. I'll put the link down below this video. And thanks for watching, guys. I think that's it.
That's all for now. Thank you so much.
Bye.